You've entered the Houston Running Zone, the ultimate podcast for runners in the Houston area, featuring the everyday runners who inspire us, clubs, gear, races, and runcations. Houston, we've got the runs.
All right, today in the zone, I have an ultra runner. He recently just finished the Brazos Bend 50K, which is amazing. First marathon, first 50K. We'll get his story, but incredible that he's been doing this all while battling stage 4 cancer. Here to get a story is Bill Thach. Bill, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, I know this is kind of a touchy subject, but at the same time, I really want to get your story out there so people can get a different outlook on life and everything. You know, the first thing that I noticed is I didn't want to do too much homework because I want everything to be fresh. I want it to be more of a conversation. But at the same time, you know, as far as diagnosis, were you always a runner or an athlete before your diagnosis?
So surprisingly, I've always been an athlete. I've always exercised, worked out, did weight training, tennis. But with running, I actually barely started running January of this year.
Oh.
So I was not able to run due to side effects from a previous drug that I was on for a clinical trial. It actually caused me to cramp up in all different parts of my body. And it actually made me stop. I made the attempt to run years back, but due to the side effects, I couldn't handle the cramping. With cycling, just because of the motion of the pedal stroke, it's constantly stretching out my calf. And that's where the majority of the time when I did try to start running, I would get severe cramps in my calves. So I had to stop right away.
And this is from the side effects. Is that correct?
Side effects from chemo. Yeah.
Okay. So how long have you been battling?
So I was diagnosed back in November of 2018. I've been on nonstop treatment. So I'm currently on my 7th line of treatment, as well as I've had an 18-hour surgery back in November of January of 2021. I've had 2 port placements as well as a liver ablation. So it's been a pretty rough road, but I've always found solace in doing any sort of exercise just because it basically distracts me. At the same time, gets my mind off of things. So I don't really have to deal with the reality of what I'm dealing with.
I didn't know it was that long. When you first found out, was it a surprise? Did you have symptoms? And you know, what are your thoughts there?
So pretty much back in 2018, I had blood in my stool, which is never a good thing when blood comes out of any part of your body. I kind of decided to put it off just because at that point, I also was recently laid off from my company from a restructuring. So highest priority was basically get a job. I just recently became a father 5 months before that. And I was like, okay, let's get this. And then I'll go to the doctor and we'll figure this part out. So I get a job after about a month, which was pretty quick, which I was very fortunate about. I basically start working. Benefits started day 1, which was really nice. Set up a appointment with my GP. They basically told me, it's probably hemorrhoids. So I was like, but then when I came back, I was like, it's not hemorrhoids. It's like, because it keeps coming back. So they ordered a CT scan. And I have a feeling that the doctor did not really read my CT scan because he just brushed it off. So maybe it's something with my autoimmune issues. So I have something called spondyloarthritis where I have issues with back pain. So I had a lot of inflammation in my lower back. So I went to my rheumatologist. He was like, this has nothing to do with your back. So he was like, I'm going to refer you to a gastroenterologist. So I met with him. We set up a colonoscopy. And after I woke up, the doctor was like, we need to start chemo right away. So they found a 6-centimeter mass in my rectum. And they sent the biopsies to MD Anderson. So about 2 weeks later, I get confirmation from my doctor it's neuroendocrine carcinoma, which is really a mouthful. So me being a brand new cancer patient, of course I'm going to go to Dr. Google and try to find out as much information as I can. So I'm basically reading, it's like, okay, I'm seeing a lot of neuroendocrine, but I'm not seeing neuroendocrine carcinoma. So as I do more and more research, I'm finding out that I was like, this is a very rare cancer. And then the NEC designation of the subtype is even more rare. The other unfortunate thing is that the patients that have NEC do not have a very good prognosis. So the typical prognosis for a NEC patient is between 8 months to about 2 years survival.
Okay.
So I have luckily basically gone past that because I'm about 5.5 years now. At the same time, I am also somewhat of an outlier just because you don't really hear much about patients in my situation wanting to do ultras, wanting to go on super long bike rides, and doing any sort of activity after doing chemo. So on the day of the Brazos Bend 50, I of course didn't really sleep well. I normally don't really sleep well before an event. So even if I tried sleeping early, is like, I guess it's just probably anxiety or just pre-event jitters. I took my chemo that morning. So right now the chemo I take is in pill form. So every morning I basically take it on an empty stomach, and I basically I ate after that, and then I went to the event and just basically ran the 50K.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, wow. Well, I noticed that I'm trying to figure out like what was your thought process? You know, in 5 months, lost a job, became a dad. Obviously, there's a little bit of stress involved, and I can see where they think it's other things that are very common. Did you automatically go, okay, I need to do something about the stress and work out more? Or are you just kind of keeping it your normal activity that you normally do? Like, what was any adjustments?
When I first got diagnosed, it's funny because right after I got the diagnosis, I actually started feeling like I was literally dying just because the tumor was actually growing fairly rapidly in my body. So it took close to a month to get all the labs and the scans for the doctor. And also we had to, being that it's November, I'm basically competing with several holidays. So I'm dealing with Thanksgiving, I'm dealing with Christmas, and I'm also dealing with New Year's coming up. So I was like, I wasn't getting the appointments right away. So I was like, I would have to wait 1 week before I get the next appointment. And then it got to a point where I was like, when I finally got the last scan and the labs, I was like, I get a phone call from MD Anderson saying, it's like, oh, we're ready to admit you as a patient. And I tell them, I was like, okay, that's great. I was like, I just finished all my labs and my scans. I was like, where do I send this to? And they basically tell me, I was like, oh, we can't use any of those. We have to actually get those at our own campus. And that kind of started making me freak out just because like, it took me over a month to get all these things done. I was like, if you're going to tell me I have to do all this over again, I was like, I feel like I'm really dying right now. So they basically made me feel at ease when they said, it's like, well, do it all in one day. You'll just have to get here really early and you'll stay really late. And I said, that's totally fine because I was literally supposed to start chemo the following day. And they told me, it's like, if you start chemo tomorrow, we won't be able to take you until your first cycle is done. So now I have this very important decision where I was like, okay, I need to start treatment right away or this is not going to turn out really well. Or I'm basically going to take my chances, go to MD Anderson, which I knew I wanted to go to MD Anderson just because it's, if I have the choice to go to the best hospital in the nation, I'm going to.
Yeah, it's right here.
It's just one of those things where I was like, I've waited so long to basically get the go from insurance, get all the labs and all the scans to just do this. So I was like, I ended up deciding that I was like, I'm going to go to MD Anderson. So we go there, we basically get everything done. I got there around 5 a.m. and I didn't leave until midnight. So we got all that done. We had to go through the approval process because it's a different provider through insurance. And my initial start date for chemo now is December 28th. So almost 2 months now. And I basically started that process. So started chemo, I started feeling a lot better. So once I started feeling better, I was like, okay, I think I could start moving. So I was like, being on chemo, you're given a lot of steroids, and those steroids basically cause insomnia. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to lay in bed all day. So, and then at the same time, I'm still working. I didn't even stop working. So I was like, well, I could basically just go outside for a walk. So at random parts of the day, even the evening, and even at night, I would basically just walk. 2 a.m., 1 a.m., 4 a.m., it didn't matter. It was like I would just be walking just because it was a distraction, got my mind off of things. And then I would basically go to work and just do what I needed to do just because I had a family, we had bills to pay. Then at the same time, I was like, I need a distraction to basically get all these negative thoughts out of my head. So
did you set like a distance goal? Is that where it kind of started, or
no? It didn't really evolve into that until later on, just because I was just trying to just move as much as possible. So it was treatment after treatment, just because the thing with NEC cancer is that eventually the drug stops working. That's the unfortunate part about NEC. The other unfortunate thing is that I'm going to eventually run out of options. So this cancer will eventually take my life. So it's one of those things where I have to understand that as like, you know what? I have to have so much gratitude for what I can do and what I am able to do, just because, like I said, a lot of people aren't in the position that I am. I didn't need to stop working. My job is flexible enough to a point where I'm remote and I can basically work anywhere I need. My schedule is flexible, which is nice because I can move around appointments if needed. And I could basically just continue to adapt and understand how to navigate this cancer, along with being a father, having a family, working, and navigating cancer.
Wow.
So
5.5 years in, obviously you're ramping up your distance to be able to do a 50K. Is it becoming easier, or is it a continue adjustment phase on how to function and let alone train for an ultra?
You know what? I will be honest. I still hate running, but at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, I know I will eventually learn to love it, just because I'm still in that adaptation phase. So I started new treatment back in, I would say, February. So I'm on a brand new chemo. So on a brand new chemo, I'm required to be at a hospital 2 to 5 times a week. And I could be there up to 16 hours a day, being on a new trial. So working full time, going to the hospital literally full time, trying to basically exercise as much as I can, learning how to run, learning how to adapt to, okay, the thing that I do like about running is that when you have a weak body part, running tells you that right away.
Oh yeah, good point.
So I was like, it was one of those things where I was ramping up my mileage. It was like I started with 1 mile, then I did 2 miles, then I basically started increasing from there. When I got to the 20-mile distance for a long run, I was like, the very next day I felt my back go out. I was like, oh yeah, I should probably strengthen my core a little bit more. So once I basically took a week off, I did 18 miles, and that basically told my body that. So I took a week off, and then the following week I did 20 miles, and I was fine. So
I don't like running. And so why are you running? Obviously, I want to get the story. I'm not teasing here, but what's the was it just like something to conquer? Was it wanting to prove yourself? What was the?
So the thing I noticed about ultra running was that it brought itself in a different scenery. A lot of marathons are on the road in cities. I've always enjoyed the outdoors, and ultras are typically on trails, and I get to basically be out in nature. That is one thing I enjoyed. There's a difference in terms of the allotted amount of time that they allow you to finish your run, which is actually advantageous to me just because it'd be easy for a healthy person to ramp their way up to an ultra. But for someone who's had a monster surgery, who's constantly on a new chemotherapy treatment, and who is constantly having side effects during, before, and after the run, I had a lot of different challenges compared to an average person who does their running. I see running as a practice suffering, just because with cancer, there are so many unknowns that you basically take on. Is this drug going to work? Is this drug going to send me to the ICU? Is this drug going to kill me? Because I've been on several different treatments. I've been to the ER multiple times. I've gotten to a point where I needed blood transfusions. I've gotten to a point where I've just hated life. I was like, running, because it was new, I basically saw it as an activity that could basically break my body. I could use it to build resilience. The pain that I get from these activities primes me to deal with the pain that I get from chemo. The drugs that, if I could basically control the thoughts in my head, because I noticed that when you push yourself with any sort of activity, it brings out the best in you, as at the same time, it brings out the worst in you. So the question I always basically bring in my head is like, am I willing to go through that? And then am I willing to finish this? I could be bleeding. I could have something wrong with my leg. Heck, I could need another blood transfusion, because I've done a cycling event where I've been stopped by a paramedic where like, oh, you do not look good. And then later I find out, I was like, oh, I needed a blood transfusion. That's why I couldn't basically push myself after.
Oh yeah, no big deal. Oh my goodness gracious.
Pain and suffering basically makes you see it gives you a different perspective. It really does, just because the way that we see life is basically built by our experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, shout out to Trail Racing Over Texas. I know Cal has taken over for Rob Goen. They've continued a really great race there at Brazos Bend. It's a hidden gem. I know you're in the Richmond area. I'm in Clear Lake. Hey, we'll meet halfway. Let's run a race together. I've done a couple of halves and just a 25K, not a 50K. There, it's beautiful. It's a hidden gem. Definitely check it out. I'll make sure to put the links. And as your kind of your outlook on life is probably better than 95% of the people listening, just because it could have been because of what's happened, but it's really cool to see that. But looking back 5.5 years ago, was that immediately there, or because I could see where there could be like a spot where you go, okay, I could either take the victim route, which I completely understand for people that take it, or it could be like, I'm going to be a victor route and I'm going to change my life, live my life, enjoy my life. I got a daughter, I got a family, I got responsibilities that I enjoy. Was it what that deciding factor? Was it immediate, or did it take a while?
It took a while, just because the very first thing in my head was like, I don't want to die. So I was like, when you're in that situation, it's like when you have a finite timeline and to make a decision in terms of needing to make that decision at a very fast pace, and not giving the option of basically, okay, here are my options. Can I do this? Can I do that? I didn't have those options. It was basically do this or die. Over time, when I basically started feeling better, my mindset started changing. But I've always been the type of person who is like, I love challenges. But at the same time, it's like the possibility of failing for everybody in anything in life is in the realm of possibility. No matter your mindset, hope or willingness to fight, when it fails, what will you do? As like, are you going to get up and be ready to keep going? Or are you just going to be complacent and give up and die? That's just the way I see it, because I know with my timeline, I'm eventually going to not have the ability to move anymore. And when I don't have that ability anymore, I probably don't want to live anymore, because I'm not going to be a potato. I'm not going to be a liveless soul that's basically just given pain medication before he dies. I want to keep moving, so it gives people who can't move or who question if they can move the motivation to move. But at the same time, I want to show that I want to show my daughter that I was like, you know what? Daddy's been through hell. He can still work. He could still do these events. And he didn't let cancer or drugs or any of that stop him.
Yeah. But yeah, well, that's powerful. Yes, we all love challenges, but nobody wants that challenge. But the thing that you're teaching your family, especially your daughter, that what a great lesson as far as you could do anything in this world.
But it's easy to take on challenges that you know we could do.
Yes.
Being a new runner is like, hell, I didn't even know if I could even do a full marathon. Why did I even want to get into a 50K?
Well, I was like, that's the thing.
I was like, it was nice. I honestly thought, being a cyclist, I could go fairly long distances and survive. I was like, I thought in my head, I was like, I could have this transfer. I could have these little skills transfer over. It didn't transfer over that much, because running is so damaging to your body, and I had to learn the hard way. I was like, the only thing I was able to transfer from cycling is understanding how to fuel correctly. So my biggest fear was bonking. I never had a fear of twisting my ankle. I never had a feel of blisters or any of that stuff. I welcome pain, which I was like, my pain tolerance is very high, because after my 18-hour surgery, a week after I got discharged from the hospital, I walked 2 miles in my walker.
Oh my. Well, I know we talked a little bit about, the actual race itself. You said you ran the entire thing?
Oh no.
Okay, there we go.
I was like, I am not the fastest runner. I would admit that. I was like, I'm not trying to be the fastest runner. But I was like, it'd be nice if I was faster. I was like, I was probably averaging 16 to 18 mile. In the beginning, I was averaging about an 11, 12-minute pace, which is not bad. But at the same time, it's like, I never have gone past 20 miles. So I was like, there's a good amount of unknown for that 11-mile stretch.
Yeah, there's 50% more left.
So it was one of those things where I was like, I know I could do it. So it's like, it's going to be one of those things where I was like, my mind is basically going to be the deciding factor if I'm going to finish. I didn't really, DNFing was not in the books for me. I was like, I'm going to finish this regardless. I was like, and I had enough time in terms of time limits to finish it. So that's not what I was worried about. It's like, it was just one of those things where it's like, I know I'm going to hate life, but it's like, this will only make me stronger, just because it pushes me to a limit physically and mentally, to a point where it's like, I'm ready again for the next challenge in terms of how much hell this next drug will bring me. Because the last treatment sent me to a hospital, sent me to the ER 2 times. So I just need to be ready. It's like, I just need to be ready. That's it. It's like, it's a point of keeping me sane. But at the same time, I know that when I do this kind of training, it takes time away from the family. But if Daddy isn't sane, he's not going to be completely there either.
That's a good point. I see that a lot in parenting, where people, my kid comes first, but I hate to use the cliche.
If you're not fully there, the kid's going to take some backlash.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the cliche of put your mask on first type of thing. And yeah, I think people just forget. They use that as an excuse. Unfortunately, we all do it sometimes. But on the race, you're thinking, okay, I've never run 30 miles. I barely ran 20. So you kind of had like I could do a walk run backup plan, or are you just gonna wing it?
By mile 26, I was like, oh, I did a full marathon. This is nice. But I was at the point, I was like, okay, I need to just power walk now. I was like, because I tried jogging slowly and that did not work. But when I started power walking, it's like, why is this faster than me jogging? It's so weird.
You are in the Houston running zone. We've got the runs.
That is weird especially when you're just trying. Don't walk, and someone walks faster than you. That's
it's kind of weird, like because I saw a lady is like I saw her walk. I was like, man, your power walking as fast as my jogging is like those. How do you do this? And then I started trying. I was like, oh wow, it's working. I should have done this like 4 miles ago.
Yeah, it's great to learn at a race. Why train? Just figure it out. That's what I do.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to learn. But I was like, I want to figure out what my next ultra will be because I do want to do Brazos. I do want to do Big Bend in January of next year.
Oh, nice.
Of course, everything will basically be dependent on how healthy I am, just because we still don't know if the drug that I'm on is keeping my cancer stable. So that's the biggest question mark. I had scans a little over almost 2 weeks ago, and it showed that my cancer was growing, but they said it's within the margin of error in terms of, okay, it could grow up to 20% and we'll still consider it stable. So I'm not completely satisfied with that response. So I'll have another scan in about 3 weeks, and that will basically tell me where I'm at. But I continue and plan to basically find more ultras and continue cycling on top of that, just to be a hybrid athlete.
Well, yeah, I'd imagine just staying healthy as well as stress and everything else that you have to deal with. So what's next on your calendar?
I'm thinking of one in September. I just don't know which one yet. I do probably want to find other running events in the Texas area where I could basically participate in, but I haven't really looked at it. Just feel like, okay, I've been off my bike for 3 months. I was like, let's get back on the saddle and do that. So I've been riding. I got a couple of rides in last week, and I just started running again yesterday, actually. Wednesday, I actually got a 4-mile run in. So I'm going to try to figure out how to incorporate running back into my schedule and just do both.
Wow. Yeah. September, still pretty hot. So
yeah, but it's one of those things where it's pretty hot right now.
Yeah. Oh, it's just 9 months out of the year. So there you go. People that are listening, they're like, okay, what the heck is my excuse? Like, all of our problems are minuscule compared to, what you're going through, what you're conquering, what you're getting over. I mean, 5.5 years, where the more rare on average, the smaller the time frame. You've beaten the odds. You'll continue to beat the odds because you're planning ahead, which is awesome. So where's your mind going now? Obviously, you're thinking of some races. What else are you doing that wouldn't be here 5.5 years ago, like since your diagnosis?
My interest in basically bringing the awareness to my cancer, just because, like I said in the beginning, is like our cancer doesn't really have much of a voice. Every time you hear about cancer, it's either about prostate, breast cancer, colorectal. But it's like you'll see that ribbon, you'll see a blue ribbon, you'll see a pink ribbon, you'll see all these different color ribbons. But so the neuroendocrine cancer ribbon is the zebra print. It is a zebra print just because every patient is completely different and every patient is treated completely different. So when you get diagnosed with cancer, you want to make sure that you align yourself with a NET or NEC specialist, just because majority of the oncologists out there will not know how to treat this cancer. They will treat it in a way where they thought they were treating this specific cancer, but they're treating it completely wrong. this disease has come a long way in terms of treatments, just because years ago there were many treatments for my type of cancer, and a lot of doctors, after a couple of different drugs, they would basically tell them, like, I'm sorry, there's nothing else that we can do.
Yeah, I could see not to their fault, but I could see where that could happen. Absolutely.
I was like, I'm very grateful that I also have a genetic mutation called ATM, where doctors are using targeted therapy drugs where they're basically using a specific drug just for that mutation, and it's keeping me alive. But there's a lot of caveats in terms of living, because 5.5 years of nonstop drugs that are constantly poisoning your body will have it has collateral damage. I have a lot of neuropathy. I have fatigue throughout the day, which cancer fatigue is very different, just because there's no amount of caffeine and there's no amount of sleep that'll make it go away. It's just there. I get phantom pain in certain areas because my 18-hour surgery, we removed my prostate, my rectum, my bladder, my seminal vesicles, parts of my liver. We did reconstructive surgery on my abdomen. And then we also did radiation just to make sure that everything was basically, they got everything. And unfortunately, when I was given the decision if I wanted to move forward with the surgery, the doctors told me, I was like, you have 100% chance of this cancer coming back. I just told them, I was like, you know what? I just want this crap out of me. Get as much of it out of me as possible. I was like, I now have 2 bags on my stomach. So I have one that is used for my poo, and then the other one is for my urine. But I've also found those to be fairly advantageous as well in terms of activity, because I don't have to worry about finding a bathroom. If I need to pee, I'm just gonna unplug my bag, and I could pee anywhere without getting in trouble. That's the nice part about it. But at the same time, like, there was a learning curve in terms of like, okay, now I have to buy products for the rest of my life. I have skin issues just because from all the adhesive when I basically take off the bag on my stomach. But I was like, you take the wins when you can, and you adapt to the losses.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Is there anything else that you're doing to stay healthy? Yeah, I can understand, like, yeah, drugs, like, it's regardless, it's gonna take a toll on your body. Is there anything else that you're doing as far as, nutrition wise, as far as or what you're eating or what you're drinking, or even just to clear your mind?
So I've gone plant-based, but I wouldn't say completely 100%, just because there are times where if I'm out with friends, I'm out with family, I want to get some meat. I don't really eat red meat very often anymore. If I'm eating meat, it's probably chicken or fish. But I would probably say 90% of the week I'm plant-based. So I eat nothing but vegetables. I've found it fairly interesting just because I've played with a lot of the different diets, such as keto, low carb, high fat, and all these other things. And I've actually found being plant-based to be very doable, just because when I was doing keto, it was very restrictive. I was like, I have to eat bacon again, to eat cheese again. Might as well just take a shot of olive oil. It's one of those things. I was like, with plant-based, I was like, there's so much variety. I could eat all types of fruit. I could eat all types of vegetables. And at the same time, the way that we could season our foods, it's so much easier to be a plant-based compared to what it was like 10, 20 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I was like, the thing I like about it is, like, I could eat as much as I want and I won't gain a pound. So I was like, but that's probably the major thing that I did with my diet. And strangely, it's actually given me more energy to do what I do.
Okay, yeah, probably not as taxing on your system. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing the story. Obviously, there's a lot more to your story, a lot more that we'd like to discuss. And the best part is I'd like to have you on, every couple months, kind of as an update, because things change, new challenges, in a positive way, new challenges and everything else like that. Yeah, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for reaching out and being a voice. And yeah, think about different things. Hey, do you want to start a vlog, YouTube, book? There's so many things you could do in addition to getting your voice out there via podcast.
Yeah, I was like, I'm trying to figure out ways. I've tried to do the social media thing where like I'm trying to vlog, but I was like, I am not very good on camera. I was like, it kind of brings anxiety to me. I was like, oh, I have to do this. I was like, it's just easier to post a picture and just put some words on it. But I was like, it's definitely a different skill set where if you're gonna record yourself, I was like, it's getting over that hump of being uncomfortable. I was like, I think I could probably eventually do it. It's just one of those things where I was like, I need to do it.
Yeah, and absolutely, things have changed. It went from super professional, now everything's super real. So people are actually, obviously there's people that you follow that are professional, but at the same time, people really like to bond with people that are more like them. So I can guarantee 9 out of 10 are afraid of public speaking. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know what the numbers are, but I can guarantee it's over 90%.
But yeah, I was like, I'm hoping I could find ways to raise awareness, but it was like eventually when I figured it out, I was like, I'd love to start learning how to raise the money too. It's like maybe I could do an event where I was like, maybe if I cycle X amount of miles, I could basically get people to get more aware of my cancer, donate money to the cause. That way I could basically give back to the community and find ways to open access to more treatments, as well as giving people more of a glimmer of hope. Just because I was like, I hope I continue being an outlier for many years down the road, but it's just such a big question mark, just because with several treatments not going my direction the past year, I was like, where would I be? I was like, everything was great when I was stable, but now I'm basically back in that question mark territory where I was like, hey, am I going to be healthy enough next week, next month? Can I continue doing this? Just because it's mentally taxing knowing that my cancer will take no days off. Like, people always tell me, it's like, why don't you take it easy? It's like, if I took it easy, I'd be dead. It's one of those things. It's like, people just don't understand. It's like, there are no days off for a cancer patient. There's no such thing as feeling great, because every day we feel like crap. If it's not from the drugs, it's from the side effects. If it's not from the side effects, it's from your mental perspective of life. If it's not from that, it's from the anxiety of like, will this cancer come back, or will it come back with a vengeance?
Definitely, yeah. Keep fighting. Obviously, we'll continue to get your story as months pass. So we'll talk offline and see what else we can think of, different ideas between the two of us. We'll come up with some, and why not? Be good. Excellent. But Bill, before I let you go, I always have 3 bonus questions. Call it the lightning round again. Thank you so much for sharing, and we look forward to having you back on. But hey, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, question number 1: if you could run or cycle with anyone, it could be a runner, it could be someone that you always wanted to meet and try to chat and exercise, who would it be?
Paul Johnson is one, just because he recently did a run from Los Angeles to New York. I would love to just understand his mental state, just because going that mileage for over 40 days, there has to be some major what the moment am I in terms of what am I doing? Because doing ultra is one thing. People who do ultra who do the hundreds, 250, 300s, eventually it stops. It's less than a week. But when you're going for over a month, there has to be something wrong with you. But at the same time, there has to be a desire to do something for someone. So I would love to understand that mindset. But at the same time, what do you do to basically get yourself past those moments of doubt?
All right. Well, question number 2. What is something that you like on race day? Like the must-have race gear. It could be a bottle, a hat, shoes, you name it. What's your must-have race gear?
Probably my running vest now, just because I had a cheap running vest in the beginning because I wanted to save money. Because getting into the ultra world, I was like, oh my God, I need more stuff. I was like, I thought I would save money going to running, but I was totally blindsided by how much more expensive events are, how expensive these damn shoes are, and all these other things. Like $160 for a running vest, it's ridiculous. But I have, of course, eventually basically bent over and just gave him my money because I needed it.
Yeah. Was the inexpensive one just like bouncing, rubbing? What was up with it?
So the bottle holders were not long enough so it was my I had a collapsible running flask that kept tossing around that would basically hit my face. It was one of those things where I was like, it gave me respect for women, just because like, okay, if you have larger a larger top side, I was like, it's gonna be hitting you in the face if you don't have a sports bra. So I was like, I kind of felt similarities where I was like, okay, this is how that feels, but I know I can't really say that. But I was like, it was one of those things where it's somewhat of a nuisance. So I was like, I basically eventually splurged and got me a Solomon running vest, and I was like, this is awesome. I was like, it's comfortable. It doesn't really feel like I'm wearing anything at all.
Yeah, cool. Shout out to Solomon. All right. And question number 3, can you give everybody listening one more reason to go out for a run today?
It shows you that you're alive, because I use that as a ounce of gratitude every time I basically get out and run. I was like, it may be hard. You may not even want to do it. Hell, look, we live in Houston. We never want to do it 9 months out of the year. But you'll feel so much better after you do. And at the same time, if you have that appreciation and gratitude that you could do what most people in this world don't do, you'll be that 1% that will always be happy.
Awesome. Yeah. Powerful way to put things in a perspective. And again, yes, appreciate all that you're doing and look forward to connecting with you and having you back on here in a couple months to catch up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Keith.
As always, if you want to become the first to find out about upcoming weekly episodes, simply hit the plus, follow, subscribe button. Depends on your podcast platform. And if you're on a podcast app where you can leave a rating and review, we always love it. Hey, give us 5 stars if you like it. And if you don't like it, give us 5 stars anyways. You made it through the whole episode. But more importantly, looking forward to sharing another episode next week.
Thanks for visiting the Houston Running Zone. If you know someone you'd like to be featured in the zone, go to thehoustonrunningzone.com and send us a message. Until next week, always remember, Houston, we've got the runs.